The signal began as a whisper in the dark, a thin thread of sound drifting through empty space. It carried fear, pain, and a plea that was barely strong enough to exist. Most listening stations ignored it. Some systems marked it as corrupted data. Others never noticed it at all. The galaxy was wide, busy, and tired of small tragedies, Han Era noticed. She worked the night shift at a secondary listening hub on the edge of the Galactic Union's mapped space. It was quiet work meant for junior analysts. The kind of post given to people who asked too many questions and did not yet know when to stop. Era liked the silence. It gave her time to think. It also let her hear things others missed. The signal did not follow standard formats. It did not use clean code or approved distress language. It was old, layered with static, and damaged by distance. Still, it repeated one clear pattern: coordinates, followed by a simple message translated into dozens of tongues. "We are dying. Please answer." Ara sat up straight. She checked the source. The coordinates pointed to a border system near the outer spiral, place held by the Alari, a small and gentle species known for soft voices and floating cities. The Alari had no enemies of note. They were traders, not fighters. Era pulled up public reports. There were none. No alerts. No calls for aid had reached the Union Council. That alone felt wrong. She ran the signal through deeper filters. The power level was extreme, as if the sender had burned through every reserve to push it out. Whoever sent it had expected help, or they would not have tried so hard. Ara's hands moved faster. She expanded the search range and found fragments of other messages crushed by noise. Energy spikes showed signs of large-scale weapon fire. This was not a raid. This was a war. Protocol told her what to do. Log the signal. Flag it. Wait for a review. Ara did not do that. She opened restricted archives instead, records sealed long before her birth. She searched for emergency response paths that bypassed the Council, ones meant for extinction-level events. Most led to automated aid fleets that no longer existed. Others were dead ends, removed after political fights. One file remained. It was old and thin. Its text faded and marked with warnings. The title was simple: Last Resort Contact. Era hesitated. The file carried a long list of notes written by many hands across centuries. Words like unpredictable, uncontrollable, and final appeared again and again. At the bottom was a single line that froze her breath. Use only if loss of all life is certain. The contact code inside. The file did not point to any known Union member. It led beyond charted space to a region marked only with caution symbols and red borders. The species name was Short Humanity. Era had heard the word before, spoken in quiet tones during training. Humans were Deathworlders, born on a planet that should not have allowed life. Their history was full of internal wars, disasters, and survival against impossible odds. Long ago, the Union had decided that humanity was too dangerous to involve in galactic affairs. Not because they were cruel, because they finished things. Ara looked back at the signal from the Ilari world. The energy readings had spiked again. Another city had likely fallen, if she followed protocol. Millions would die while committees argued, if she used the code. She would change history. Era made her choice. She activated the beacon. The system shuddered as power drained into the transmission. Layers of encryption unfolded, ancient and strong. The message was simple, stripped of politics and fear. Extinction imminent. Aid requested. The beacon fired, sending its call into the dark. Far away. Beyond the borders of maps and fear, something heard it. The UNS Resolute was not at war. It drifted through deep space on a patrol route that had no name and no audience. The ship was large, heavy, and built without concern for beauty. Its hull was scarred from past battles, each mark repaired but never erased. Inside, systems hummed with quiet readiness. Captain Lee Jisoo stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind her back. She was calm, as she always was, eyes moving across data streams without rush. Around her, the crew worked in silence. Trained to act without noise or panic, Park Do-yeon, the tactical officer, frowned as a new alert bloomed on his display. "Captain," he said, "we just received a priority signal. It came through channels we don't normally monitor." Jisoo turned. "Source: unknown origin," Do-yeon replied. "But the encryption is human." "Old human?" That drew attention. The bridge grew still. Jisoo stepped closer. "Open it," the message played. "Coordinates. Threat level. One final line. Extinction imminent." Jisoo did not ask questions. She did not need to. "Helm," she said. "Set course." The helmsman's eyes widened as the destination appeared. "That's outside Union space." "Yes," Jisoo said. "Maximum speed." No one objected. The Resolute turned, engines flaring as it slipped into faster-than-light travel. Behind it, space folded and closed like water, back at the listening hub. Alarms began to ring. Hanera stared at her console as warning symbols flooded the screen. Security systems noticed the power surge she had caused. Requests for authorization poured in. She ignored them instead. She watched the beacon's status signal received. Era let out a shaky breath she had been holding since she pressed the activation key. Whatever happened next was out of her control now, across the galaxy. The Ilari homeworld burned. Floating cities fell from the sky, their graceful shapes torn apart by weapons that did not care for beauty. The attackers were vast, their ships dark and angular, moving with cold purpose. They did not respond to hails. They did not offer terms. The Ilari fled where they could, but there was nowhere safe. Their defenses were weak, their technology built for peace. One by one, their shields failed. In the midst of the chaos, a small council chamber still stood. Ilari leaders gathered there, surrounded by dim light and shaking walls. Their voices trembled as they spoke. "We sent the signal," one said. "Will anyone answer?" Another asked. No one replied. Then space changed. A ripple passed through the system, sharp and sudden. Sensors across every fleet screamed warnings as a massive energy signature appeared near the edge of the system. The attacking armada shifted formation. Confused for the first time, a single ship emerged from the void. It was not elegant. It did not glow. It did not display colors or symbols meant to impress. It was dark, thick, and solid, like a moving fortress. Weapons lined its surface in controlled patterns. Its engines burned with steady, terrifying power. The UN's Resolute had arrived. On the bridge, Park Do-yeon scanned the battlefield. His expression hardened. "They're mid-extermination," he said. "Civilian targets everywhere." Jisoo's jaw tightened. "Open a channel." Transmission went out, carried on clear. Simple waves. "This is Captain Lee Jisoo of the United Nations ship, Resolute," she said. "Stand down and withdraw." There was no answer. The enemy fired. Energy bolts crossed the void, bright and violent. They struck the Resolute's shields and broke like waves on stone. Readings barely shifted. "Permission to respond?" Do-yeon asked. Jisoo watched the burning world below. She thought of the beacon, of the fear behind it. "Permission granted," she said. "Defensive priority." "Protect the planet," the Resolute moved. It placed itself between the attackers and the Ilari world, its massive frame blocking lines of fire. Point defense systems activated, intercepting incoming weapons with perfect timing. Larger cannons rotated, locking onto enemy ships. The first human shot was precise. One enemy vessel vanished in a flash of controlled force, its shields collapsing as if they had never existed. A second followed, then a third. Shock rippled through the attackers. They had faced many species before. None fought like this. From orbit, Ilari survivors watched as the lone human ship stood against an armada and did not break. Hope, fragile and new, stirred among them. Back at the Galactic Union, delayed reports finally reached the Council. Emergency sessions were called. Analysts rushed to understand what had gone wrong. Choi Yuna stared at incoming data, her face pale. That response code? She said softly. It was activated. Kong Sejin looked up. The last resort one? Yuna nodded. Humanity is involved. Silence fell over the chamber. Someone whispered, "Then it's already war." On the bridge of the Resolute, alarms settled into steady rhythms as systems adjusted. Medical Officer Kim Hein prepared aid teams. Even as the battle raged outside, Captain Lee Jisoo watched the enemy regroup. "They came for extermination," she said quietly. "They chose the wrong system." The human ship advanced. The galaxy had asked for help. Humanity had answered. And the universe was about to learn what that meant. The enemy did not retreat after the first losses. Confusion spread through their formation, but it lasted only seconds. Their ships adjusted, spreading out and increasing fire. Bright lines of energy filled space, aimed at the human warship that dared to stand alone, the UN's. Resolute did not slow. Captain Lee Jisoo remained steady on the bridge, her voice calm, as if nothing unusual was happening. "Maintain position. Shield balance even. Do not chase." Park Doyen nodded, fingers moving fast across his console. "They're testing us. Different weapon patterns. They want to see what gets through." "Let 'em try," Jisoo said. The Resolute's shields flared again and again. Some hits were strong enough to shake the deck, but the ship absorbed them without damage. Internal systems rerouted power with smooth efficiency, like a body reacting to pain it had felt many times before. On the lower decks, Kim Hyen felt the vibrations through the floor. She checked her medical bay one last time. Beds were ready. Supplies were sealed. The wounded would come soon, she knew, and not only humans. "Prep mixed treatment kits," she told her staff. "Different biology. No delays." A young medic hesitated. "Alien patients?" Hyen met their eyes. "Anyone hurt is our responsibility." Back in orbit, the enemy fleet shifted tactics. Smaller ships rushed forward, fast and reckless, trying to overwhelm the Resolute's defenses through sheer numbers. They flew close, weaving through debris and fire. Doyen's screen filled with targets. "They're closing distance." "Shh," he said. "Point defense," Jisoo replied. The Resolute answered with precision. Small turrets tracked each incoming ship, firing controlled bursts. One by one, the attackers were cut down, their hulls breaking apart in silent flashes. Not a single shot was wasted. From the surface of the Islery world, survivors watched the battle through damaged sensors. They saw the human ship move like a shield, blocking attacks meant for the planet. For the first time since the invasion began, fewer impacts struck the atmosphere. Hope spread. It's quiet but powerful. In the Ilari Council chamber, the leaders gathered again. Smoke filled the air, and the floor trembled with distant explosions. "The human ship still holds," one said, voice shaking. Another lowered their head. "They are protecting us. They asked for nothing," a third whispered. Above them, the war grew fiercer. The enemy commander, hidden deep within a massive flagship, watched reports stream in with disbelief. Weapon yields that should have crippled any vessel were failing. Losses were mounting at an impossible rate. "What species is that ship?" the commander demanded, and aide hesitated. "Records are unclear. Design matches no known Union fleet." "Then destroy it," the commander snapped. All fire. Now, heavy weapons charged across the armada. Energy levels rose, pulling power from every system. The attack that followed was the strongest yet. A focused storm meant to erase the human ship from existence. On the Resolute, alarms spiked. "High yield strike incoming," Doyen warned. Jisoo did not raise her voice. "Brace forward, shields to maximum." The impact hit like a mountain. The ship shook hard enough to throw crew from their feet. Lights flickered. A few consoles sparked before emergency systems cut power. For a moment, even the shields dimmed. Then they held. Damage reports flowed in. Minor hull stress. No breaches. No casualties. Doyen stared at the numbers. "They threw everything at us." Jisoo's eyes were cold. "And failed." She straightened. Return fire. The Resolute's main cannons charged, deep and slow, drawing power from reactors built for war beyond reason. The targeting solution locked onto the enemy flagship, one shot fired. The beam cut through space with quiet certainty. Enemy shields collapsed instantly. The flagship split apart, its core erupting in a controlled burst that sent fragments drifting in all directions. Across the battlefield, enemy ships faltered. Leadership was gone. Some vessels tried to retreat. Others froze, systems scrambling for orders that would never come. Enemy command eliminated, Doyen said. Jisoo nodded once. Continue defensive sweep. No pursuit beyond this system. The Resolute moved again, not chasing, but controlling space. It destroyed ships that threatened the planet and ignored those that fled. The message was clear. This ends here at the Galactic Union. Emergency chambers overflowed. Screens showed live feeds from the Ilari system. Officials watched in stunned silence as the battle turned. They're winning, someone said. They're alone, another replied. Choi Yuna felt a chill run through her. This is why they were restricted, she said softly. One ship is enough, Kong Sejin swallowed, if more arrive. The thought remained unfinished. Back at the listening hub, Hanera watched the same feed. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of her desk. She had expected destruction, anger, chaos. Instead, she saw control. She saw restraint. Security officers burst into the room at last. You violated protocol, one said sharply. You activated a forbidden code. Era did not argue. She only pointed to the screen. Look, she said. The officers fell silent. In orbit, the final enemy ships broke and ran. Silence spread through the system, broken only by drifting debris and fading fires. The Ilari world still burned, but it was alive. Jisoo exhaled slowly. Begin humanitarian operations. Doyen looked at her. While we're still in enemy space. Yes, she said. They called for help. Dropships launched from the Resolute, carrying medical teams, engineers, and supplies. Kim Hine led the first wave, her expression focused. As they descended through the damaged atmosphere, she saw the scars of war below. Cities shattered, oceans scorched. Survivors gathered in open areas, staring up at the unfamiliar craft. The dropship landed gently among ruins. Ilari responders approached with caution. Their forms were slender and fragile, eyes wide with fear and wonder. Hine stepped forward slowly, hands open. We're here to help, she said, using a basic translation unit. The words were simple. They were enough. Wounded Ilari were carried aboard the ship. Human medics worked quickly, adapting treatments, learning as they went. Pain eased. Lives were saved. Above them, the Resolute held watch. But the war was not truly over. Long-range sensors began to light up again. Doyen stiffened as new signals appeared. Captain, he said, multiple hyperspace disturbances. Large scale. Jisoo studied the data. Reinforcements? Possibly, Doyun replied. Or something bigger. Jisoo's gaze hardened. Alert the fleet. Doyen paused. Which fleet? Jisoo answered without hesitation. Ours. She activated a secure channel, one that had not been used in years. Uncommand, she said. This is Captain Lee Jisoo. We have confirmed hostile extermination forces active. Civilian genocide in progress. Engagement underway. It was a brief silence. Then a reply. Message received, came the calm voice of a distant commander. Authorization granted. Behind the Resolute, space began to ripple. One disturbance became many. Human warships emerged from hyperspace. Their silhouettes dark and solid, forming lines across the stars. Each ship carried scars. Each ship carried history from the surface. The Ilari looked up and saw not one protector, but many. Fear turned into awe at the Galactic Union. Panic spread. They're deploying, someone whispered. Yuna closed her eyes. Humanity has entered the war. On the bridge of the Resolute, Jisoo watched the fleet assemble. "This system is secure," she said. "Prepare for wider operations." Galaxy had crossed a line. The call for help had become a declaration, and humanity was no longer. Standing alone, the arrival of the human fleet changed the silence of space where there had been drifting wreckage and fading fire. There was now order. Human warships spread across the system with careful spacing, forming layers of defense around the Alari world. Each ship moved with purpose, never colliding, never hesitating. To alien observers, it looked less like a fleet and more like a living wall. Captain Lee Jisoo watched the formation settle from the bridge of the UN's Resolute. Data flowed across her display, showing positions, fuel levels, and readiness reports. "All ships report green," Park Doyon said. "No hostile contacts inside the system." Jisoo nodded. "Maintain alert status. This enemy does not give up easily." She knew that better than most. On the surface, human aid teams worked through the ruins. Kim Heen moved between shelters and temporary medical zones, her hands never still. Ilari civilians lay on stretchers, some wrapped in simple blankets, others connected to machines brought down from orbit. Many of them stared at the humans with wide eyes. "You are not afraid of us?" an Ilari elder asked through a translator. Heine shook her head gently. "You're hurt. That's all that matters." The elder's frills trembled. "We were told Deathworlders have no mercy." Heen paused, then gave a small smile. "We have limits. That's different." Above them, the fleet held position. Beyond the system, however, the enemy was already reacting deep in their territory. Surviving commanders gathered fragmented reports. An entire extermination force had been destroyed or driven off by a species they barely knew. Visual records showed thick armored ships, precise fire, and an unwillingness to retreat. "This is not a minor power," one commander said. Another hissed in anger. "No species stands alone against us." "They did," the first replied, "and they won." Orders were sent out. Fleets shifted. Old reserves were activated. The war was growing. At the Galactic Union, emergency assemblies turned into chaos. Representatives spoke over one another as screens showed human ships securing the Ilari system. They violated Union boundaries. One delegate shouted, "They prevented genocide." Another replied. Choi Yuna sat quietly, watching both sides argue. She had read the old files. She knew what came next. "This will not stay contained," she said at last. The room fell silent. "Humanity does not deploy fleets for warning," Yuna continued. "They deploy to end threats completely." Fear spread through the chamber. Back on the Resolute, long-range sensors pulsed again. This time, the contacts were distant but massive. "Multiple enemy fleets," Doyan reported. "At least 3 major task groups. They're moving toward Union space." Jisoo folded her arms. "They're trying to force a wider war," yes, Doyan said. "Or scare us into pulling back." Jisoo's answer was calm. "We won't." She turned to the COM station. "Send updated threat analysis to command. Full enemy movement patterns." The message went out. Across human-controlled space, the response was immediate. Shipyards increased output. Reserve crews were activated. Old hulls were pulled from storage and brought back to life. Humanity had been quiet for a long time, but it had never been idle. Yoon Tak-young stood inside a command chamber far from the front lines. He watched projections of the galaxy shift as new data arrived. "The enemy believes fear will slow us," he said. A nearby officer nodded. "It has worked before." "Not on us," Tae-young replied. "Authorize forward deployment." The order carried weight. More fleets began to move. At the Ilari world, repairs continued. Power grids flickered back online. Atmospheric stabilizers were restored with human assistance. Each success lifted morale. Still, fear remained. Ilari scouts approached the human perimeter cautiously. One young scout spoke to a human officer. "Will they return?" the scout asked. The officer did not lie. "Yes," The scout's voice shook. "Will you stay?" The officer looked up at the sky, where human ships held their silent watch. "We already decided to." In orbit, Jisoo received a direct transmission from Union Command. "Captain Lee," the voice said carefully, "you were not authorized to escalate this conflict." Jisoo kept her tone respectful. With respect, authorization ended when civilians were targeted. "There are political consequences," the voice warned. "There are worse consequences," Jisoo replied. "Extinction is one of them." The channel closed without reply. Moments later, another message arrived. This one carried no hesitation. "Captain," said Yoon Tae-kyung's voice, "you have full operational authority." Jisoo allowed herself a small breath. The enemy fleets crossed another boundary. They did not attack the Alari system again. Instead, they struck nearby trade routes, Union outposts, and undefended colonies. The message was clear. If humanity wanted war, the galaxy would bleed. Reports flooded in. Civilian losses mounted. On the Resolute, Doyon slammed his fist lightly against his console. "They're spreading the damage. They want us to chase them," Jisoo said. "We won't play that game." She opened a fleet-wide channel. "All human units," she said. "New directive. We shift from defense to containment." Orders flowed. Human fleets split into task forces, each assigned to block, intercept, and isolate enemy movements. Instead of chasing every attack, they cut off supply lines and communication hubs. Enemy ships began to vanish. Not destroyed, captured. Human. Boarding teams moved with speed and control. They disabled systems, secured crews, and pulled data from enemy networks. Prisoners were treated firmly, but without cruelty. Captured commanders were stunned. "You could have destroyed us," one said. "We still can," a human officer replied. "But we're learning first." Information flowed back to command. Enemy structure. Home systems. Core leadership. The picture became clear. "This empire doesn't negotiate," Tae-kyung said, studying the data. "It consumes. Then it won't stop," an advisor said. "No," Tae-kyung agreed. "Which means we must." On the Ilari world, Hanara arrived under guard. She had been detained, questioned, and finally released with conditions. The Union could not punish her without admitting its own failure. Era stepped onto the damaged ground and looked around. She saw humans working beside Ilari. Rebuilding homes, restoring water lines, sharing food, Ilari children watched human. Soldiers with curiosity instead of fear. Era felt tears sting her eyes. She was escorted to a command center where Jisoo waited. "You're the one who sent the signal," Jisoo said. Era bowed her head. "Yes. I'm sorry if don't apologize," Jisoo said. "You did the right thing." Ara looked up. "What happens now?" Jisoo's answer was honest. "Now we make sure this never happens again." In distant space, enemy leadership gathered one final time. "The humans are different," one said. "They do not threaten," another added. "They prepare." A third spoke in fear. "If they reach our core worlds, they won't," the first snapped. "We will stop them." But doubt had already taken root. Across the galaxy, stories spread. A Deathworld species had answered a call for help. They had not asked permission. They had not retreated. They were not finished. On the bridge of the Resolute, Jisoo looked out at the stars. "Set course," she said. Softly, the ship turned. Humanity was no longer reacting, it was advancing. The advance began. Without speeches or warnings, human fleets moved in quiet lines, through known routes and hidden paths learned from captured data. They did not rush. They did not scatter. Each task force had a clear goal. Each goal removed a piece of the enemy's ability to fight. Supply depots vanished first. Convoys were intercepted, far from front lines. Human ships disabled engines with careful shots, boarded the vessels, and seized fuel, food, and command codes. Crews were detained and treated under strict rules. No torture, no revenge, just control. Enemy systems began to feel it within days. At the edge of one such system, Small enemy patrol detected incoming signals too late. Human ships dropped from faster-than-light space around them, blocking every escape path. The patrol fired once. It was their last mistake. In minutes, the engagement was over. The patrol ships drifted powerless, surrounded by human boarding craft. Their commander stared at a human officer in disbelief. "You could have destroyed us," the commander said. "Yes," the officer replied. "But then you'd learn nothing." Data flowed back to human command centers. Maps became clearer. Enemy movement patterns were laid bare. The war was turning into a lesson. At the Galactic Union, panic deepened. Trade routes collapsed as fighting spread closer to central space. Refugees flooded core worlds, bringing stories of human fleets that appeared without warning and left systems silent. "They're not conquering," one delegate said in fear. "They're cutting." Choyuna listened, her hands folded. "They're isolating the threat," she said. "This is how humans fight wars they plan to end." Many did not find comfort in her words. On the Alari world, rebuilding continued. Power grids stabilized. Clean water flowed again. Human engineers worked beside Ilari crews, without complaint or rest. Han Era assisted where she could. Translating, coordinating, apologizing when words failed. "You saved us," an Ilari worker told her. Era shook her head. "I only asked." Above them, the sky still held human ships. Captain Lee Jisoo moved between command stations aboard the Resolute, reviewing reports. Casualties remained low, but the pressure was growing. Every step forward drew humanity deeper into enemy space. Park Doyon stood beside her. "Enemy morale is breaking," he said. "Intercepted transmissions show fear, confusion." "They're not used to resistance," Jisoo replied. "Especially not resistance that learns." A new report arrived. "Civilian holding camps identified," Doyon said slowly. Jisoo stopped. "Camps." "Yes, populations taken during earlier expansions." "Labor, resources." Silence fell across the bridge. Jisoo's voice hardened. "Redirect nearest fleets." "Those camps become priority targets," the order spread. Human ships altered course. At one such camp world, alarms screamed as unfamiliar ships appeared in orbit. Guards scrambled, weapons firing wildly. They did not last long. Human Marines landed with controlled force. They disabled defenses, secured entry points, and moved inward. Inside the camps, prisoners cowered, expecting death instead. Doors opened, hands reached out. "You're safe now," a human voice said again and again, across dozens of systems. Similar scenes played out. Freed populations looked at their rescuers with disbelief. Some wept. Others fell to their knees. Human forces did not stay to accept thanks. They left supplies, medical aid, and instructions, then moved on. The enemy leadership panicked. Emergency councils argued and shouted. Plans contradicted each other. Some called for retreat. Others demanded total war. We underestimated them, one leader said. They are only one species, another replied weakly. They are enough. The first said desperation bred cruelty. Enemy forces began targeting civilian worlds directly, hoping to break human resolve. Bombardment struck undefended planets. Casualties soared. The news reached human space within hours. At a forward command center, Yunta-kun read the reports in silence. They think pain will stop us, he said at last. An officer asked quietly, will it? Taekyung looked up. No. It will focus us. New orders were issued. Human fleets shifted from containment to suppression. Key enemy shipyards were marked. Command worlds identified. Strategic nodes highlighted. The war entered a new phase. The first strike fell on a major shipyard system. Human fleets arrived together, overwhelming defenses in minutes. Orbital platforms fell. Production lines were disabled with precision shots. No civilian areas were touched. Enemy warships under construction were left powerless. Floating monuments to lost ambition? Similar. Strikes followed. Each one removed another pillar of the enemy's strength at the Galactic Union. Fear turned into grim understanding. There. Dismantling an empire? Someone whispered. They're doing it cleanly, another said. That's worse, a third replied. Hanera received a message summoning her to Union headquarters. She stood before the council, her posture steady. You set this in motion, one delegate said. Era met their gaze. I stopped an extinction. And unleashed another, the delegate replied. Ara shook her head. No, they're ending one. Silence followed. Back at the front, the enemy launched a massive counterattack, gathering what remained of their fleets into a single push. Sensors across human space lit up. Largest movement yet. Doyan reported. They're coming straight at us. Jisoo studied the projection. They're desperate. Yes, Doyan said. And dangerous. Human fleets formed lines. The battle that followed was the largest the galaxy had seen in generations. Weapons fire lit the void. Ships were lost on both sides. Explosions bloomed like dying stars. Human coordination held. When one ship fell back, another took its place. When a line weakened, reserves moved in. Slowly, the enemy formation collapsed. Hours later, silence returned. Wreckage drifted. The enemy had lost the last of its mobile fleets. On the Resolute, exhaustion showed on every face. Doyan leaned back. It's over, he said quietly. Jisoo did not answer at once. She watched long-range data continue to update. No, she said. It's decided. That's not the same thing. She turned to the comm station. Prepare final directives, she said. We end this properly. Across the galaxy, the message spread. Humanity was not raging. It was finishing the work, and nothing stood in its way. The final phase of the war did not begin with fire. It began with silence. Across enemy space, human fleets slowed their advance. Ships held position at key points, watching, listening, and waiting. Too many outside observers. It looked like hesitation. It was not. Captain Lee Jisoo studied the gathered data from the bridge of the UN's Resolute. Enemy signals were weak now, scattered and confused. Communications between their worlds were broken. Supply routes no longer existed. Fear filled the gaps where orders once flowed. They're isolated, Park, Doyan said quietly. Every core world stands alone. That was always the goal. She knew what came next would shape how the galaxy remembered humanity. At a distant command center, Yoon Taekyung met with senior officers through secure channels. Faces appeared one by one, tired but focused. We have reached their heart, Taekyung said. From here, there are only two outcomes. No one spoke. We offer terms, he continued. Full surrender. Immediate disarmament. Release of all prisoners. No delays. An officer frowned. And if they refuse? Taekyung's answer was steady. Then we end their ability to choose. The message was sent. Human transmitters carried the offer across enemy space, repeating it in every known language. It was clear. It was simple. Surrender or cease to exist as a threat on enemy core worlds. Panic erupted. Leaders argued in sealed chambers. Some demanded resistance to the last ship. Others looked at casualty numbers and empty skies and saw the truth. They are already here, one leader said. We just cannot see them. On one core world, crowds gathered beneath darkened skies. Civil defense systems were silent. No alarm sounded. Human ships watched from far orbit. On the Illyri world, news spread quickly. Hanara stood among rebuilt towers, listening as updates arrived. The war that began with her choice was nearing its end. Will they destroy them? An Ilari elder asked. Era shook her head. Humans don't destroy what stops fighting. But if they don't stop, the elder pressed. Era looked up at the sky. Then it won't be destruction. It will be removal. Back on the Resolute, Kim Hyen reviewed casualty lists from liberated worlds. Freed prisoners were receiving care. Families were being reunited. For the first time since the war began, the number of wounded dropped instead of rising. They're surrendering in groups, she said, overcomes entire garrisons. Jisoo closed her eyes briefly. Good, the first formal surrender came from a minor enemy core system. Their fleet powered down and transmitted unconditional compliance. Human ships moved in slowly. Weapons ready but silent. No shots were fired. Boarding teams secured vessels. Commanders were taken into custody. Weapons were dismantled. The galaxy watched at the Galactic Union. Shock rippled through every chamber. They're actually stopping. One delegate whispered. They could take everything, another said. But they aren't, Choi Yuna replied. That's the point. Not all enemy worlds chose surrender. One heavily fortified core planet rejected the terms outright. Its leaders broadcast defiance, calling for total resistance. Human fleets adjusted course. The strike was swift. Orbital defense platforms were disabled in minutes. Power grids went dark. Command centers lost connection. No cities were bombed. No civilians were targeted. Instead, the world was cut off. Days passed. Food supplies ran low. Systems failed. Finally, the transmission came. Unconditional surrender. Jisoo watched the feed without expression. They chose, she said softly. Across enemy space, the pattern repeated. Surrender. Isolation, surrender. Resistance faded. The enemy empire collapsed, not in fire, but in exhaustion on the final core world. The last ruling council gathered in silence. They stared at the human message that had played for weeks. No threats, no anger, only certainty. They signed the surrender. The war ended on the Resolute. The announcement spread quietly. No cheers filled the bridge. No celebrations broke the tension. Instead, there was relief. Doyen leaned back in his chair. It's done. Isu nodded. Yes, but not finished, Doyen added. She agreed. Human fleets remained in place, overseeing disarmament and prisoner transfers. Aid convoys followed, bringing food, medicine, and engineers to former enemy worlds. The galaxy struggled to understand what it was seeing. An empire that had terrorized dozens of species now stood dismantled. Its people alive, its weapons gone. At the Galactic Union, emergency laws were rewritten. Humanity's classification changed. No longer forbidden, no longer feared alone. Something else entirely. Hanara returned to the listening hub where it all began. The room looked smaller now. She replayed the original signal. We are dying. Please answer. Someone had answered Dodd on the Ilari world. Children played in open skies again. Ships passed overhead, human and alien together, not as enemies, but as watchful guardians. An Ilari child looked up at a passing human vessel. Will they leave? The child asked. Someday, the elder replied. When we are safe, and if danger comes back, the elder smiled gently. Then we know who to call. On the bridge of the Resolute, Jisoo stood alone for a moment. Gazing into space, humanity had been summoned. Humanity had answered, and the galaxy would never forget the cost of asking or the relief of the response. The war was over. But the galaxy did not return to peace. Silence followed the fighting, heavy and uncertain. Systems that once burned now waited, unsure what the future would bring. Human fleets remained in place, not as conquerors, but as guardians standing watch over broken borders. Captain Lee Jisoo felt the weight of it every day. From the bridge of the Uns Resolute, she reviewed reports that no longer spoke of battles, but of food shortages, damaged cities, and frightened populations. Victory had removed the threat, but it had not healed the wounds. Relief convoys are reaching former enemy worlds, Park Doyan said. Some populations are refusing help. Jisoo nodded. Fear takes longer to fade than war. Human aid ships moved carefully into those systems, broadcasting clear messages. No weapons would fire. No territory would be claimed. Supplies were offered freely. Some worlds accepted, others waited. On one liberated planet, Keemheim stepped down from a transport ship into a field of damaged shelters. People watched from behind broken walls, their faces tight with fear. "We're not here to punish you," she said through a translator. "We're here because you're alive." Slowly, the walls came down. Children were the first to approach. Across the galaxy, former prisoners returned home. Species long thought extinct appeared again, weak but breathing. News spread fast. Humanity does not erase. Humanity removes the knife, then binds the wound at the Galactic Union. The aftermath shook every law and belief. Emergency sessions turned into permanent councils. Old rules were questioned. Long-held fears were spoken aloud. "They could rule us," one delegate said. "They choose not to." Choyuna stood and addressed the chamber. "This is why they are dangerous," she said. "Not because they seek power, but because they do not need it." The room fell quiet. Union records were rewritten. Humanity's status changed again, no longer forbidden. No longer restrained. They were labeled something new. Last resort. Ally. The term carried both relief and fear. Han Era watched the announcement from a public terminal. She felt no pride, only exhaustion. The choice she made had saved millions, but it had aged her years. An Ilari official stood beside her. "The galaxy will remember you," they said. Era shook her head. "It will remember them." Human fleets began a slow withdrawal from enemy space. Not all at once. Not carelessly. Each system was stabilized before ships departed. In many places, humans were asked to stay. They refused permanent bases. "We don't occupy," Jisoo explained during a Union broadcast. "We ensure safety, then we leave." Some leaders did not believe her. Then the fleets actually left. Trust grew, slow and fragile. On the Ilari world, rebuilding reached its final stages. Floating cities rose again, reinforced with human engineering. New shields covered the skies. Ilari children painted symbols of the Resolute on walls. Copying its rough shape with bright colors, human engineers pretended not to notice Kim. Hain walked through a restored medical center where Ilarian humans worked side by side. "They'll be fine," she told Jisoo, overcomes. "They don't need us anymore." Jisoo smiled faintly. "That's the goal." But not all consequences were gentle. Fragments of the defeated empire resisted in hidden corners of space. Small groups refused surrender, striking at isolated targets. Human patrols responded quickly. There were no large battles, only quiet removals. The galaxy learned a final lesson. Humanity does not rage forever, but it does not forget unfinished work. At a remote command station, Yoon Tak-young reviewed the last active threat markers. "Clear them," he said. No speeches. Hours later, the markers vanished. The map was still. On the bridge of the Resolute, the crew felt the change before it was announced. Long-standing alerts powered down. Weapon systems returned to standby. Doyon leaned back, tired but calm. "Feels strange," Jisoo nodded. "Peace always does at first." A final message arrived from Union Command. The emergency authority granted to humanity was officially ended. There was no protest, no argument. Humanity accepted the return to silence. Hanara stood once more at her listening station. The galaxy sounded different now. Fewer screams. More empty space. She monitored the same channels, knowing the cost of ignoring them. Somewhere, someday, another signal would come. She hoped it would never need the same answer. On the Ilari world, a memorial was raised. It showed no weapons, no enemies. Only a simple shape of a ship standing between a planet and the dark. The plaque carried a single line. Translated into every known language, they answered, "Far from there." The Un's Resolute turned toward human space. Its mission complete, its hull scarred. Its crew changed. Captain Lee? Jisoo looked once more at the stars beyond the viewport. Humanity had been tested. Humanity had endured. Now came the harder task. living, with what it had done and what it had chosen not to do. The galaxy did not return to what it had been. Trade resumed. Borders reopened. Ships traveled again without escorts. On the surface, life looked normal. Beneath it, everything had changed. Stories spread faster than data. They spoke of the day a single signal crossed the void, and a Deathworld species answered without asking who would pay the cost. They spoke of fleets that did not boast, did not threaten, and did not retreat. They spoke of a war that ended because one side refused to let it continue. Captain Lee Jisoo listened to those stories only in passing. The Unresolute moved through human space now, returning to familiar routes. Repairs were underway. Paint covered old scars, but many were left visible by choice. They earned those marks, Doyen said. When a junior officer asked why they were not removed, Jisoo agreed. On board, the crew adjusted to routine again. Drills replaced combat alerts. Long watches replaced constant motion. For some, the quiet was harder than the war. Kim Heine spent her time training new medical teams. The lessons went beyond tools and treatment. You will see fear, she told them. Don't answer it with force. Answer it with calm. Many of her students had never left human space before. Now they would serve across the galaxy. Humanity had become visible. At the Galactic Union, a new session opened. This one did not carry emergency markings. Still, the chamber was full. Choi Yuna stood before representatives from dozens of species. We need a new understanding, she said. The old rules were written for a galaxy that no longer exists. Some resisted, others nodded. The final vote passed by a narrow margin. A permanent protocol was created. The SOS clause. It could only be used under one condition. Verified extinctional level threat? It did not summon fleets or demand action. It asked a question. Are you willing to answer? The clause named one responder, humanity. The chamber was silent when the result was announced. Far away, Hanara received the news alone at her station. She read the clause twice, then leaned back in her chair. They learned, she whispered. Her console chimed. A new message waited. It was from an Ilari world. Thank you. Ara closed her eyes and let herself breathe. On former enemy worlds, recovery moved slowly. Human aid had ended, but the example remained. New governments formed without fear of retaliation. Weapons were dismantled, not replaced. Many remembered the moment. Human ships appeared, and how the sky did not fall. It simply changed. Some feared humanity would return one day with demands. They never did. Years passed. The Unresolute was reassigned. No longer a frontline vessel, it became a patrol ship once more, traveling the quiet edges of mapped space. Jisoo stood on the bridge during one such patrol. Watching distant stars, do you ever regret it? Doyon asked. She knew what he meant. No, she said. I regret that it was needed. A routine scan interrupted them. Signal detected, a sensor officer said. Weak, long range. The bridge grew quiet. Jisoo stepped closer. Source. Unclear, the officer replied. Non-standard. Old format. The words carried weight. Play it, Jisoo said. The message crackled, distorted by distance. We don't know who you are. We don't know if anyone will hear this. But we are running out of time. The crew exchanged looks. Doyon swallowed. It's not the claws. Jisoo nodded. No. She considered the stars ahead. Set course. Shh. She said no one questioned her. The Resolute turned. Not because of law, because of choice. Elsewhere. The galaxy watched human ships move again and felt a familiar mix of fear and relief at the Union. No alarm sounded. No emergency session was called. They trusted the answer. On the Ilari world, the memorial still stood. Wind passed through its open space. Carrying soft tones from its design, an elder spoke to gathered children. They are not gods, the elder said. They are not monsters. What are they? A child asked, the elder smiled. "They're the ones who show up. Far beyond that world, the Uns Resolute entered uncharted space once more. Captain Lee Jasu stood tall. Hands behind her back, humanity had been called Deathworlders. The galaxy had been right. In a way, humans were shaped by struggle, pressure, and loss. But the truth had finally been understood. Deathworlders were not. Born to destroy, they were born to endure. And when the universe cried out in its darkest hour, endurance was exactly what it needed.